Please allow me to begin by just welcoming everybody to the 15th episode of the Matt Mettler Podcast. It's the Matt Mettler Podcast broadcast here from the Matt Mettler Podcast broadcast studio, located somewhere near the heart and just adjacent to the esophageal area of the Denver metro region. So I'm really stoked to be here with you, and I'm trying out some things today. So this is a big test for my equipment and my setup. I already did a test that did not turn out the way I liked it. So I'm going to try it again. And hopefully everything turns out awesome this time. So again, everybody, welcome and thank you for joining me here at the Matt Mettler Podcast broadcast. My podcast is ostensibly about Denver living and being in Colorado and being a Colorado person. I've lived here since I was 8. So, most semi-native, right? But I talk about a lot of subjects, right? Like I'll touch on all kinds of different things. The news or what's going on around Denver as far as homelessness and stuff like that. I'll talk about the mainstream media. I'll talk about, legalization of cannabis. We'll talk about all sorts of different things. And I hope that you will join me for that, right? I very much appreciate every listener that joins and watches, and I want to thank you so much for choosing this video and choosing to be here with me right now. So that is great, and thank you. So in the 14 episodes that I've produced up to this point, I've said some things, right? Nothing that I thought was entirely too crazy or anything like that, but some things that I want to clarify. There are some things about, that I've talked about that I just want to clarify. Because I don't want people to get the wrong impression about me, right? I don't want people to take the things I say in the wrong vein, because you should know the direction that I'm coming from, right? So technically, I don't hate on people, right? I don't hate. If you want to be gay, that is your right to choose. I don't care. I don't care. If you want to be gay or bisexual or lesbian or transgender, whatever, it's all good. I don't have any problem with people wanting to live their lives the way that they want to live their lives, right? That's fine. The problem I have is when you want to force other people into excessive accommodation of it, right? Because I'm perfectly fine letting people live and let live. I'm perfectly cool doing that. But I'm only gonna allow that to go so far, right? I think that we have you are seeing a battle, a back and forth about that line of what is too far. And one of the reasons that I bring this up is when I used to work at the place that I used to work at, I would get internet requests, like access requests to be able to see certain things, right? Because the filtering would stop that website from being viewed because it would fall into a category that was not allowed. And one time on more than one occasion, but one time, I got a submission that was regarding a bunch of LGBT sites. And my job as the IT security, one of the IT security people, was to vet the site that they were talking about, make sure that it didn't have anything bad going on there, and then also weigh in on the business use case that was defined or outlined in the request. And the business use case in the request was really weak. It was like a one-liner. It was like one sentence. And I think, if I remember right, it mostly came down to feels. It was about feels. And so before I did the background checks on the sites, I sent it over to my guy that would normally do the reviewing of it. And I said, we just got this request in. It's for, 3 or 4. I think it was 3 or 4. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was 3 or 4 LGBT sites. And I said, the business use case is pretty weak. I said, I personally don't have any problem with what people do outside of work. I said, but I don't see how it's relevant to doing work or being at work. I'm not exactly sure how going to these websites and smurfing these websites during work hours has anything to do with working. So to me, it was kind of like it was a matter of convenience. Because at the company that I worked at, you were always free to just use your phone. You could always just use your phone. So if you were really that serious about viewing that website, because I mean, it's not like it was a really exciting website or something like that. It was mostly static content. It was the kind of stuff where you could read it at home in 10, 15 minutes and probably never click on it again. And it was just sort of like, I'm not exactly sure why we have to have this here in the workplace, right? Because it wouldn't be appropriate for me to be all up in everybody else's business talking about how straight I am or how, but for some reason, everybody that's in that set now believes that we all are that we want to hear about it. We don't want to hear about it, man. We don't care. I really think that for the most part, we don't care what you do. It's not so much about what you do. It's that you won't shut up about it. It's that you can't seem to shut up about it, right? And I don't honestly think that there has been, real mass hatred or mass systemic kind of discrimination. The last 4 or 5 years have really seen a huge change in the acceptance of all these things. So it's almost like it's a problem that doesn't exist. It's almost like you're crying about a problem that doesn't exist, and in some way that's making us all worn out on hearing about it. And again, I am all for people's ability to love whoever they want to love. And I don't discriminate in that respect. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter to me. Like when I think about some of the parties that I've attended, if there's a lot of gay people there, that's usually a fun, happening party, right? Gay people totally know how to party. So like, there's no doubt about that. They're fun, I think that we've come to a point where now there's this expectation that I have to be a cheerleader for it, that I have to root you on, or that I have to root on others regarding it. And it's like, to me, again, what you do is your personal choice. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It's what you do is your personal choice. Yeah. So I believe that there should be a component of reciprocity out there where I'm open-minded enough to allow for all flavors to exist, right? So to me, it's like that needs to be returned to people who actually aren't your enemy. I think one of the things that you got going on is that people can't stop calling people Nazis and bigots long enough to realize that if you'd shut up for 5 minutes, I'm actually on your side of the argument. If you'd stop calling us Nazis and bigots and stuff, you would come to find out that I'm in favor of freedom, right? And that includes your freedom to do what you want. Or who you want. It's no skin off my back, dude. It's all you. So to me, it's like, I want to see that reflected back, dude. I want you guys to acknowledge that it is not fair to lump everybody into a single category and say that we are all bad. That's nonsense. I've experienced a tremendous amount of spiritual growth in the last 25 or so years of my life. And you will too. When you youngins get out there and grow older, you will too. And I one of the things that I've really come to recognize is that the gray area of it all, it's not simple. It's more complex than that. There are complexities. And I don't want to try and smash anybody's hopes or dreams. And I'm not trying to be a hater. But at the same time, it's like, we'll only accommodate it to a certain extent. And then when you want to go beyond a certain point, it's like, wow, dude, you're really pushing your luck on the whole thing. Like, it's not just enough that you can just live your life and be left alone. Like, that's not enough. You need to have a cheerleader. Everybody in America has to be a cheerleader for what you're doing. It's like, nah, nobody in America is a cheerleader for everybody else anyway. So it seems, and then the other component of it is that it's overrepresented. There is a huge component of things being overrepresented in the media that exaggerates their real standing statistically. So I think we got to have more accountability on stuff like that, where, you know, this is a good example, and I'll probably, if I leave this in the video, I'll probably get completely flamed for it, but that would imply that people watched the video and that it went viral, so maybe that'd be a good thing. I don't know. But my point is that America is composed of 14% black people. The statistical makeup of black people in the United States is 14%, right? It's in cities and certain regions, there's tons of black people, but then you go to other areas and there's not very many at all. And one thing that's like in Denver, once upon a time, Denver was quite segregated. There was a neighborhood for blacks, there was a neighborhood for Latinos, there was a neighborhood for whites, and there was a neighborhood for Asians, and there was a neighborhood for Jews, which are still whites, but for some reason they got their own neighborhood. You know, so it is worth noting that Denver in its earlier history was just as segregated as any other place. But if you go and you look at the statistics of those neighborhoods now, those neighborhoods now actually reflect the statistics of the United States. Like they will be just as equally diverse as the statistics of the United States. So there's really no, like, once upon a time, the neighborhood 5 Points was where all the black people lived, right? But I don't know what happened or when that changed. But now 5 Points has been completely bought up by other people who bought up all those properties that had appreciated in value dramatically, and those people moved on, right? They were happy to move on. And then now the neighborhood is transformed into a weird, so many of these neighborhoods have changed where they're now like a hipster haven, or they're like, you'll see people jogging with their dogs, and it's like, once upon a time you would have never dared to jog around here with your dog unless your dog was a pit bull. But now, like, you'll see people in crazy neighborhoods, they'll be jogging around with their Irish setter, you know, like with their headphones on, not even totally oblivious. And I think what it is I have preconceived notions about those neighborhoods based on how I remember them 25 years ago. But the truth is that those neighborhoods aren't like that anymore. Like, there's this place called Hilltop now, and they totally renovated the entire part of between Federal and I-25 from about Spear all the way up to like 38th or something like that. That has been completely changed now, especially along the frontage of I-25. A bazillion big, you know, well, I don't know about big, but a bazillion apartments have been put up, and it has changed very dramatically. It looks completely different than it used to look. Denver is completely different. And even when I drive down Colfax, you know, in places where there used to be just lots of crack and dope dealers hanging around on corners and hookers out there hanging around, even that isn't out there nearly as much. Even that has either toned down or moved somewhere else, or they've cleaned it up, or they're pushing it out. I don't know what they're doing, but I mean, you'll still see some girls. And it's funny because back in the day, we would drive down Colfax, you know, me and friends, stuff like that. We would play a game called Is She Working? Is She Working? You know, and if they give you the stare as you go by, that she's working, you know, something like that. And nowadays, if you go play Is She Working, you probably won't even see any girls that fit the bill. When I drive over to the Hot Chicken Latte, that's when I, you know, drive in Colfax and see what's going on. And it seems like each time I drive down it, there's a new building. Each time I drive down it, there's more apartments that never used to exist there. And each time I drive down it, they've knocked down an old hotel, and there's a hotel closed or being renovated or being sold, or, you know, it is definitely nothing like how it used to be. It's pretty amazing to see the transformation that Denver has taken in the last 15, 20 years. It's been pretty incredible to watch that take place. You know, when I was young, when I was a young kid, you would drive up to Denver and you would get to, we would call it the golf ball. You would get to the golf ball down in DTC, which is the big water tower right there at Shiza. I can't remember the name of the intersection, but the water tower right there in DTC, right? When you got to that water tower, you actually knew that you were only about 10 minutes away from Denver. When I was a kid. Like, that's how much Denver has expanded. The entire south end of Denver has just been dramatically increased. The footprint of Denver has just been hugely expanded in the last 25 years. It's incredible to see it. It really is. One of the subjects that I wanted to talk about in this episode was that this has been tremendously therapeutic for me. I did not expect that to come out of doing a podcast, blog, video thing. I did not expect that to come out of this, actually. I don't know what I thought would happen, but that is an utterly pleasant surprise. I am very thankful that has been going on. Like, one of the things that has been strangely uplifting about this is that, like telling your therapist your problems, doing this has been cathartic. Doing this has been very cathartic for me. And I have found a different sort of acceptance of things and peace that I maybe was needing to find. So it's kind of interesting that would be a side effect of doing a podcast or, recording a show. But it's been utterly cathartic and very therapeutic to speak my mind, give my opinion. The show has, when I look at all the analytics of the various different shows, they have different amounts of views, and it's really kind of interesting because what I have learned as a new YouTuber is that podcasting and YouTubing is a lot like crab fishing, right? Like, you put the pot in the water, you put the crab pot in the water, and you have to let it soak. You have to let it soak for a while before you know if it's going to be a winner or not. And the only time you get to know is when you go and look at your analytics or whatever and see how many views it has and stuff like that. And it's so ridiculous because, like, right now I kind of hinge on that, and it's so dumb. I wish I didn't. And what I need to do is I need to start putting this out on other platforms, because what I'll recognize is that when I launch this out onto other places, it will get views there too, and that it all adds up. It all adds up. Oh, I've been back to working some gigs, man. I've been back to doing some shows, and that has been really great. That has been really cool. I did a show over in the Rose Garden at the mall over in Aurora, not the mall, but over at Mississippi and Havana, that big strip mall there. There's a Rose Garden, and we did a concert thingy there. So we brought a small PA and set that up, and it was easy peasy, and it was great for a first gig back. That was really nice because I didn't have to mix or engineer. I just basically had to show up and kind of set the stuff up and then drive it back to the shop. So that was great, man. That was super cool. And then I just did a gig yesterday where we set up some stuff in a hotel, and it was a fairly long push into the ballroom area. And it was good exercise. It was really good exercise, because one of the things that I was kind of missing about entertainment and the concert business is it used to keep me in fairly decent shape. Right? Like, you got a fair amount of exercise. You were on your feet a fair amount of time. You did a lot of walking. I would walk around the venue the whole day. And when I worked at Fiddler's Green, I was really getting a lot of exercise and miles in on my day, because it was typically normal for me to walk 5 miles a day at Fiddler's Green. No doubt. Easy, And, so it's good to get back to doing some real work in the real world with real stuff and real people, instead of just everything being about fucking computers. Computers are nice. Computers are cool. But I think that I've determined that I love giving people awesome experiences. I love giving people cool memories. I love being a part of the entertainment thing. And there is no business like show business. Like no business I know. So to me, I'm very glad to be back and out of the cubicle. I don't miss the cubicle at all, dude. Maybe I miss the easy paychecks and the easy money, but beyond that, not so much. Not so much. And I'm doing just fine. Like I said, I've taken care of business, and I have too many skills to stay unemployed for very long. So it was great to start receiving these calls and start getting some showbiz stuff and start doing some show work again, because I think really what it comes down to is, after having done these couple of gigs these last few, couple weeks or whatever, it's been really nice. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Yeah, something like that. You don't really understand what you're missing till you don't have it. So I think maybe I had to go park off into some other business for a while I figured my shit out and got my shit together, and then grew up, and then come back and rock it. Come back and be awesome. Because one of the things that I did notice is when I got a call a while back, several months back, to do a show, there wasn't a whole lot of new young blood coming in to replace the stagehand crew. There was a few, there was a couple, but not very many. And I don't know if that's because there's just not a lot of room for them at this particular moment in time or what, but that was interesting to note, is that it might be a good time for some younger people to want to move into the concert business. Might be good. In my professional assessment, there's a potential gap there coming up, where you got a lot of older people in show business, and a lot of them can't afford to retire. So a lot of those people are hoping to figure out a way to retire, and then showbiz is also physically demanding in some respect. So you got to at least be in good enough physical health to do that. In my next segment, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my favorite dispensaries in the Denver metro area. I have a handful that I used for a long time. One of those being a place called the Green Cross Caregivers, and they're med only. They're over on Parker Road in Aurora. I used them for years when I was med. I allowed my med card to elapse, and I've been weighing the going to get it again, but just the hassle alone, I don't know. I had a med card because of like arthritis in my elbows and my knees and my shoulder and my neck. I was a headbanger and stuff when I was younger, and my neck is completely just thrashed. And so I was using it for that. When I didn't use it, I noticed how much pain actually I was feeling. It's a weird thing about living with pain, right? And pain management. And sometimes it's another thing. You don't recognize it until you stop whatever it is that you were doing for your pain management regimen. And then that pain comes back and you're like, wow, okay, I didn't realize how much this affected me. Like, for instance, my elbow. I get a lot of pain in my elbow. And I think a big part of that was from being a computer user 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Was causing a lot of stress on my elbow and not making it any better, right? So that was like why I had a med card, right? The Green Cross over in Aurora, off of Leedsdale, is a really great place, and they have really beautiful buds and fair prices, and they're nice folks, right? I would recommend that to people who are med card holders. Another one that I've also used quite a bit is Live Well. And Live Well has several locations, and they do rec and med, and they're great. They got a lot of locations, and I've had good experiences with them. Another one is Wellness Center of the Rockies. Wellness Center of the Rockies is located kind of over, just adjacent. Well, I suppose it is Leetsdale. It's right on Leetsdale, by the bowling alley over there, kind of near Leetsdale and Quebec, something like that, in that little vicinity over there. Wellness Center of the Rockies. They have nice looking buds and reasonable prices, and they have different tiers. So if you can only afford a certain level, they got you covered. They got all kinds of different tiers that you can buy buds in, and some really decent, nice weeds up in there, man. Their witch's weed is really good. Another one that I can highly recommend to you guys is a place called A Cut Above. Cut Above is med only, so I haven't been able to go in there for a while, which is a little bit sad. But A Cut Above has beautiful, beautiful looking frosty, nuggalicious herbs. And not the cheapest joint in the world, but when you have top shelf quality like that, and it's just crystal, just like completely covered in crystals, and looks that amazing, I understand it. Like, I can't hate on them because their weed is that good, right? So A Cut Above down on Broadway, that's a good place to go if you're a med card holder. They have amazing looking bud. They even have a weed or a couple of weeds in there that are members only. So if you are a member of there, you can buy that strain. Some of those strains look pretty fire. They look pretty amazing, right? No doubt. Oh, and then the one that I've probably been visiting the most, I've probably been using Wellness Center of the Rockies, and this one the most, is the Green Sativa. The Green Sativa over here on 84th and Pecos. And nice bunch of folks run that place. They have a decent selection. I mostly go there for live resin and concentrates, and they have pretty good deals on those sorts of items. So definitely recommend to folks that they could go there. They're also Rec and Med, so that's a great place if you're new to town, or you came into town to do a little bit of canna tourism. I could recommend all of these places to you that do Rec and Med. So. Especially, yeah. If you're doing canna tourism, I don't know if we do the accepting your license from some other state yet. I don't know if we do that here. I don't think we do. But I know that, you could just go in and buy rec. They won't stop you from doing that. That's for sure. Speaking of Wellness Center of the Rockies, I went there the other day and got some of this bud. It's called Mimosa. I don't know if it tastes like it has champagne in it, but it definitely tastes tangerine-y. It tastes very tangerific, right? So, yeah, Wellness Center of the Rockies, their bud, they're doing all right down there, man. I could recommend them to you guys. And popular place. Depending on the times you go there, there's quite a few folks wanting to buy weed there. So I can recommend them, though. I got this one from them, and it's purpley derply, man. It's really nice. It's top shelf. It was kind of expensive, but it was good. Totally worth it. About to do some ASMR for you guys. Okay, for all my ASMR people, here's the other day I saw Tommy Chong smoking a bong, right? So here's Matt Mettler smoking a bong. Oh man, that is so nice. That is so nice. It's funny. That just made me think about a topic that when I went to Amsterdam, like the third time, I went to the cannabis college the second time, and one of the growers that was there, they're like, here's your opportunity to ask a grower any questions that you want. And so I asked one of the growers in the cannabis college in Amsterdam, how long do you think weed should cure before you smoke on it? And without even blinking, basically, he said, 9 months. There's a train nearby. He said 9 months, and I was kind of stunned, right? Because it seemed virtually impossible to me for somebody to wait 9 months to smoke their weed. But I also was not thinking in the context of growing it yourself and having copious amounts of bud that you could kind of set off to the side to age a little bit, right? So for a while, I've been trying out an experiment of the last 5 years. I've been aging weeds and letting them age to different ages and smoking them and seeing if they're better or whatever. And what I can absolutely attest to is that they 100% become less harsh. They become more flavorful. I saw some stuff where they're like, after X amount of time, the amount of THC starts to fall out. I don't know about all that. Because it seems to me that the quality of the high gets better. So I think it has something, well, and I do know for a fact that you need certain cannabinoids to age to a certain extent before they'll be ready to, before they'll be in the certain states that they need to be, right? Like they need to age a little bit, and it develops their nature, it develops their body. And it has been my experience with the herbs that I have done this to or done this with, that does work. Another trick that I've known for a long time that I used to do was I would take a little bit of bud and put it in the freezer. And my philosophy back then was that the freezer would freeze dry the weed, right? It would freeze dry the moisture content out of it. And I would always do that sealed in like multiple containers so that it wouldn't get freezer burn, or that it wouldn't get too much exposure, right? I wanted it to be freezing cold, but I didn't want it to be exposed. I wasn't trying to freezer burn it. I was trying to keep it. So I would keep it in a Tupperware thing inside there. And the herb that I would keep in the freezer, I would call it my champagne bud. And every once in a while, I would just take a little corner nugget off of it, just a little piece, and throw it in the bong or something like that to see how it was. And it would knock your socks off. It was amazing. And it was unreal how the tiniest piece of corn kernel size piece of weed would get you lifted like an elevator. And so I always kind of knew about that trick, but there is something to aging these weeds. There is something to it, right? I've got a pretty good collection of weeds going all the way back to 2017. And then I even had a couple that might be even right on the border of 2016. Those herbs are amazing now when you smoke them. They're so smooth. They're so tasty, right? Food for thought. Something to think about, cannabis connoisseurs. I think that is probably going to wrap up this episode. Like I said, this is just a test. This is a test. Had this been an actual episode, you would have received things that would have been more coherent and connected together by show notes and less rambly. But I'm hoping to edit this together, and I'm hoping that the second time around the audio sounds really sweet and rich on this and is lovely. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Matt Mettler podcast broadcast for episode 15. If you're new, please like, subscribe, share it. Talk about it with your friends. Please feel free to contact me. I have a website, mattmettler.com. There's a lot of dudes in the world named Matt Mettler, but there's only one mattmettler.com. So please feel free to visit me there. You can contact me through email, and my phone number is there. And, I'm more than happy to talk to people. If you have a complaint about something I said, or you want to talk to me about something, or you want to be on the show to talk to me, contact me, man. Email me. I'm easy to get a hold of, and I'm happy to talk to folks. So everybody, thank you so much for your time, and please join me for the next episode of the Matt Mettler Podcast. The Matt Mettler Podcast is a Matt Mettler production, copyright 2019.